I would like to call the November 12th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Work Session to order. May I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Askin?
Here.
Commissioner Keaton?
Here.
Commissioner Petty? Commissioner Earsley?
Present.
Commissioner Kraus?
Here.
Commissioner Fikes? That's it for roll call?
No, you missed me. Woodard, here.
Commissioner Woodward?
Moving on to item B, public hearings. We're going to open the discussion on exploring the issues of tent camping within the city.
Guess for the record. Ken Buhner, the planning director. In your packet, I believe we put and that's we introduced a couple weeks ago. Over the summer, we were approached, we, the planning department, as well as the city manager's office, about camping on private lots throughout residential areas, kind of throughout the city, but there were a few places that were a little more impacted than others, just based on the scale of some of the operations. So I put together a very quick, brief presentation just to kind of introduce the subject, get it out there on the record. And that way for people that couldn't make it tonight, if they do have comments, they can still reach out to my office and we can bring them forward to another meeting. Can we pull up the presentation? Bear with us because it's going to be us struggling to get it out. A few potential issues, and for the sake of discussion, we threw a few things out there for potential solutions. These are not exhaustive by any means. You don't even have to take these recommendations. It's really just to start that conversation because we want to hear what the city actually wants to do. If they feel that it is an issue, how could we potentially solve it? So again, none of this is saying this is what we want to do. It's just the starting point. But we did receive reports of large-scale tent camping in a residential neighborhood to the west of the airport. We looked into code to see if it was indeed a code violation, and what we found was that there was not a lot in code to begin with. While the code does include restrictions for RVs, recreational vehicles, there are very limited specific to tent camping itself. So some current regulations, the one that we really could fall on this summer was the 13.10.060, the sanitary facilities. So if you are camping, you have to have access to sanitary facilities, whether that's could be a porta-john, could be access to a house. So if someone's like camping in your backyard, allowing them to be able to use facilities. We have other things about camping on city beaches. Recreational vehicles is the only thing in Title 14, which is the Planning and Zoning Code. And then 18 refers to camping on public property. So the city manager can allow for camping on public property, sometimes near the green strip. We will have the overflow during DebNet. And it's allowable on a case-by-case basis or for a very specific amount of time. So there are a few things that relate to it in Title 18, but that is it. Outside of that, there are no restrictions, no real good guidance in code to look at tent camping. So wouldn't open it up for any discussion. I was hoping to have some people here this evening, but
You mentioned the camping on the green strip for overflow. Is a permit required when they do that?
I believe it is through the PU fishery. I can double check with Parks and Rec. I believe that there is a way that they maintain order over there. I will confirm that because it wouldn't be from like the city manager's office or my office. It would be through Parks and Rec, through the larger PU fishery operation they have going. But I will confirm that because it was my first PU fishery this year.
I did a little bit of research on some smaller towns in Oregon, trying to find something that was the same size as us. And they had some cities that issue permits for any camping over 6 days on a residentially zoned lot. I thought that was interesting.
I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing that up because I too was looking for stuff, but I was looking closer to where I used to live, so I was looking at Michigan. But they like camping over there too. But it is only allowable when the city manager allows it. So generally, unless there's a special event, it's only during, for us, it's only during the PU fishery.
So is the objective to generate revenue for the tent campers?
In this context, no. For the PU fishery, I believe there's just really, it's not really to generate revenue, but we do provide porta-johns in that area. We do have dumpsters that come in temporarily to handle some of the overflow. So it's really to mitigate those costs to the city, but also provides them where, especially if we have a good year like this year, we're not completely crowded to the gills down on the beach or nearby. We can allow people to have a little bit more space, and if they have larger families or whatever, they might want to stay there and then head down to the fishery from there.
So if this was on residential property, say, so like I have family come to town, and I've only got a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. So they would just either bring their RV or they would just camp in the backyard.
Yes, so
Would
our-
we permit that?
what this discussion is, because right now we have nothing that says anything about private property, with the exception of if there is camping, that they, A, have to have written permission, or be able to, if the property owners are there, they can verbally tell us that they have permission, and they have access to sanitary facilities. So restrooms and either running water or some sort of way to get clean. So sometimes even just the kind of rubbing alcohol, the hand sanitizer stations, that's what we're going with.
I promise I'd let them use my bathroom.
You're a kind soul. But right now we don't have anything in code. And we recognize that there's going to be people that, maybe it's Johnny and Jimmy want to pop a tent in the backyard and camp for a few days during the summer. I don't think we really want to go too far in the weeds and say you can't do anything ever and you have to have a permit for every single thing. So I'll actually, for the sake of the discussion, these are, again, just suggestions, but we might want to consider, first off, what is a tent? Sounds kind of sounds like very basic, but if you don't define it, people will find very creative ways to go around it. What is a recreational unit? So that could be tent, could be an RV, and then those come together, and we might want to consider defining what is a campground. At what point do you become a campground versus just having a tent or two in your backyard? And I think if we define those, because we have defined with RVs that if you have 2 or more, you're an RV camp, and there are certain restrictions with that, where you can be located in town. Something like that might help us clear up, okay, if we have 2 or 3 tents, is that allowable? The 4th one is what puts you over. Something like that, because that would help us. Then we're not getting, like I said, into the weeds with Jimmy and Johnny, but now we're like, okay, you have 40 people staying on your lot. that might not be what the neighbors want in a residential area.
Seems like we should call it a temporary dwelling or something of that nature instead of recreational anything. Totally puts me in two different mindsets. I wouldn't refer to it as recreational camping in any way. What we're doing is looking for health and to kind of say what the health and safety concerns are and the cohesion of the neighborhood is going to be.
I like where you're going with that. But should we do it like, limit it by lot size, right? A 5,000 square foot lot's not going to hold a whole bunch plus 3 tents. But a 10,000 square foot lot might, and a 15,000 square foot lot is going to be able to hold more.
What's the smallest lot that we have in the city?
7,200 or 7,500? 7,200 square feet is our smallest allowable, and that's
Is that-
generally found,
Buildable?
yes. It's 0.17 acres, it's closer to what you'll find in the Momsen subdivision, some of the older ones that are over in Black Gold and Almstrom up near Wildwood. Those lots are the tiniest ones. What we're normally seeing now are somewhere between 0.2 to 0.3, so inlet woods, a lot of those are quarter of an acre, third of an acre, right about there.
Anything like that's going to have water and sewer service, right?
Correct. The only ones is if you are under 20,000, I believe is the minimum lot size, that would not necessarily need all that. There'll be rural residential is where those larger lots are found. Or the minimum lot size in rural residential is larger, I'll put it that way, because you can merge other ones to make up a larger lot. For water and septic, I believe it is 0.96 of an acre to have water and septic on site. Could be served by water and sewer, just depends on where it is in the city.
Should there not also be some restrictions on like fires, campfires, or?
There are in other pieces of code, but I believe that we could incorporate some that go along with this and then just kind of expound, because we do have burn bans that kind of fall under the purview of the fire department, where they can ban it citywide regardless of what you're doing. But we could make reference to those as well, or set up a certain, kind of mimic what we have on city beaches and stuff like that.
Contained in a fire ring, that kind of thing.
Yeah, containment, size, location, if there's going to be a wooded area, make sure you have an assured, cleared area so that it's not going to light it up.
Code does dictate you have to have a fire pit within 20 feet of a structure, and you have to have a gravel and a pad down. You have to have, I think, 24 inches, 2 feet up, and a protective ring can be anywhere from a minimum, I think, of 18 to 36 in diameter, and then you have to start covering it.
We would just reference that section of code without necessarily rewriting, just that way everything jives together when someone's trying to interpret if it's something's allowable.
We also need to define whether it's a developed lot or a non-developed lot. Would that need to be in the code also?
We could put that in there, because there could
I
be
mean, if
some
it's a
different
house-
interpretations.
Yeah, if it's a house with running water and everything, a tent and a camper may be okay, whereas if it's a totally undeveloped lot, porta potties and burn barrel, those things may not be.
Would our code kick in for clearing of a lot, development can't be more than 75%, tree removal? Would that kick in to cancel that out maybe?
Yes and no. If it is, so if it's not necessarily residential, but if it's a single-family dwelling, we do not require like a landscape plan. So you could theoretically cut an entire lot down to the grass for a single-family residence. So if they say they intend to put one there, we wouldn't have any mechanism. Anything above that, any multifamily, commercial, industrial, all do require site plans, so that's where we could catch it. The reason I was bringing up potentially the development of a definition for campground is because that could be a land use, and that is what you could put in your land use table to see if it is allowable in certain zones. So you could say theoretically, here's what a campground is, give the definition, and then in the land use table, it's permitted in potentially conservation, recreation, maybe a couple other ones that might make sense, like potentially commercial, like we do have the RV campground that's out on Kenai Spur Highway. That is allowable, but it's a conditional use, so it could help us give a little teeth as to where things can and cannot be located.
In the definition of camping, which I assume that we need to outline what the definition of camping is in the ordinance, it says the placement and occupancy of a tent, temporary shelter, recreational camping structure, or similar device for the purpose of human habitation, sleeping, or overnight stay. I don't know if that helps anything.
I think we can create those definitions, because I think any words that we want to use, we want to define, because if there's any gray area, it will be found.
Right.
So I think we need to be very intentional, and I have looked up like how to define a tent and a recreational use, but your temporary structure for human habitation, I think anything like that, we need to go into the weeds just to make sure that we cover any potential structure that we might find out there, because I've seen some creative ones.
I just want to disclose, I did receive a phone call from somebody in reference to this upcoming, and I did tell them it was taking place today. They live on First Street, and they disclosed that the undeveloped subdivision behind them was, lots were being sold and utilized by people, and there was no real clear access to their lots, so that was taking place from Front Street through the woods, if you will, to all of a sudden, here's a tent, here's something, and the neighbors were unsure of who was who, and so, yeah. As we get into this, that was just something I thought I should disclose that somebody had called me on.
I'll read her, she did send me an email, but she stated that she was going to be here, so I was going to let her speak to it. But since she's not, I'll read it into the record, and I can give you guys a copy of this. Forgive me. She said at the time, and it was afternoon, but good afternoon, my name is Jenna, and I live in the city of Kenai. I've seen on social media that tent camping in city limits has been a heavy topic lately, and just wanted to give some insight in case it's helpful. Specifically down First Street off of Redoubt, there are at least 2 lots that have been occupied in temporary structures. One is a small trailer that has a fence that was built around it and it's now fallen down, but the biggest issue has been on the lot kind of catty-corner to where she lives. People that bought that size land have been living in several temporary carports, an actual tent, and built an outhouse. They have been there for about 3 years. First year, they were just here for summer, assuming they were going to build on it, even though there's no direct road access, only an easement. But every year, just more and more tents have been popping up, and to be honest, it's quite the eyesore, not to mention they've been encroaching in the utility easement. That she said she'd be attending the meeting that's coming up, so she could come to our business meeting and be a non-scheduled public comment, but she did testify to that there's an issue in that area. We have seen reports on 3rd Avenue. I have to make sure it's not Street and Avenue, keep those straight. And there's been other places in town, just we'll see them when we're doing code enforcement. We go into one property and then you'll pass something else and you're like, that could possibly be an issue, but.
Should definitely include something that states the temporary shelter would be behind the main structure or so many feet back from the road, and also so many feet from any easement.
Sorry, I'm just taking notes, but definitely good feedback.
There's no rules about how, only because I work a lot in the borough, building houses, and we always have rules about how long you can stay in a temporary structure before your structure that you're building has at least the exterior finished, so that it has to not have Tyvek blowing in the wind kind of thing. We don't have any rules like that.
We do, but it only pertains to the recreational vehicles. You are allowed to stay in a recreational vehicle, so an RV, not a tent, for up to 180 days between April and October if you have an active building permit, which is 2 years. So theoretically, for 280-day seasons, you could be in an RV. Hopefully by then your house is built, or you get an extension, but that's the only limitation we have but it's tied specifically to RVs, not any other temporary structure.
So our objective isn't actually to limit whether or not people can tent camp, but just to define the parameters under which they can.
I think defining the parameters is what is camping, or what is staying in a temporary structure, however we want to define, because I think to Commissioner Kraus's point that at what point does it stop being camping and start becoming you're living in a temporary dwelling unit? So coming up with those, but I think it was the intent of some of the community that brought these issues to the forefront was they didn't feel that met the intent of a residential neighborhood. They felt that if someone was going to have like tent camping, especially at scale, they were looking like, would there be a better place where a campground could be established, or certain areas adjacent to recreational facilities that could be utilized for camping. What they were afraid of, what happened on one particular lot, is there was a derelict house that tree had fallen on, didn't look great. An owner came in, tore down the old house, which was great for us, then cleared the lot and then allowed use of that lot for camping during dead net season. So for about 3 weeks, these neighbors had a significant number of people, north of 20, somewhere 20 or 30, that they didn't know. They weren't from in town. They kept everything neat. They didn't have noise complaints. The cops weren't going out there all the time. We reached out to the police department. There weren't any complaints, but no one knew who they were, and then they were just gone. So now it's just a barren lot again. So they felt that wasn't the best use of of a residential neighborhood area.
I think the only issue I have with that is that they were behaving. They weren't causing problems. They came in, they set up some tents, they camped, they fished, and they went home. So are we trying to mitigate that, or the potential that they would be not good people or causing problems? This is my question.
Yeah, on that same note, I wouldn't go down the road of judgment, but I might look at it as like you had approached it from a commercial standpoint. If you all of a sudden start pitching tents so that the little ones can start staring at the sky at night, not an issue. But you start pitching them, and now there's 3 and 4 of them, and you're bringing in a whole Russian team of soccer players all summer. Which one of those would fall under the classification of a campground? So I think that would be a beautiful way to look at it. I would think you wouldn't be, necessarily looking at judgment or anything either way, but you can control it. You are classified as a campground if you were doing this for X amount of days, 7 tents, 10 tents within so many structures. I think that's a good way to do it.
I think it's, to go back to Commissioner Kraus's comment about the smaller towns in Oregon, to take into consideration the number of non-permanent dwellings, if you want to call it, I don't know what the term was.
I would say shelter, like a temporary shelter.
In the quantity of how many are allowed and the duration of length of time that they're allowed on private property.
You would think it would go without saying, but we should probably have something in there that says you have to have permission of the owner to be camping on the lot. Yeah, especially if it's a vacant lot, we don't know if they have permission.
That would be the no squatter rule.
And not to be a commercial enterprise.
So could not charge a fee.
And maybe an exception for families, right? Family members. They're not strangers, you're not charging them fees, they're your family.
I don't know, I would charge my mom. But no, I think those are good things to also consider because that will help give a little leeway, a little discretion for whomever is partaking. The only, so I'll take a lot of this back, start synthesizing it, that's a fun word, and come back with some recommendations based on your feedback, and not to cut off the conversation, we still have plenty of time if we want to keep going. My thought is to keep it organized, since we already have RVs spelled out in a chapter, the next chapter after that, so I think it'd be like 1420, 246, I think would be the next number. Putting this right next to it so that they're, because I think there are certain things that RVs can do that you may not have the same issue, because like RVs can contain their own waste for a certain amount of time and are mobile, so you could take care of stuff like that. So I think it would be appropriate if we do go down this road to make a specific chapter, but probably have a lot of, things that are linked to other parts of code, so we're not reinventing the wheel.
So could you theoretically come in and just throw up a high tunnel and just do an agriculture and chicken house and tomatoes on your lot, or is there a code for that? So you talk about tents, I'm just trying to think outside the box, because you're gonna get every imaginable, so if we're talking about definitions and structures, it wasn't a tent until the city told me I couldn't, it's actually a high tunnel, and I'm actually growing tomatoes. So you see where I'm going with the definition, that's why I'm like, can we tie this into agricultural code would kick in at?
We do have, for accessory dwelling, or not accessory dwelling, accessory structures, we do have some stuff, so I could look at that, see if there's anything we can shape up a little bit, because we do allow for some accessory structures, generally they have to be in your side or backyard, and that's where a lot of the greenhouses and high tunnels would come in. So we could refer to those, but I think the definition, if we broaden it out to Commissioner Krause's suggestion that it's a temporary shelter, temporary dwelling that a human is staying in overnight. Because even if it is marketed as a high tunnel, and it's looks like a greenhouse, looks like you'd be growing all kinds of plants, but you're actually just living in it. I think it'd be appropriate that we specify that this is for human occupation in a temporary or semi-permanent length of time. So regardless of what it's marketed as, that's what you're using it as.
That falls under code again, where there is code that you can't have an accessory structure without a primary structure. So that would fall under that, where a greenhouse, no matter what you call it, doesn't meet the requirements of a primary structure. A primary structure has to have a place for you to sleep, utilities like water, waste, and mostly those three. Yeah, eat, sleep, and
So if you brought in a generator and you had an outhouse rental, that wouldn't qualify, would it?
no.
That would be where some gray areas currently in code. Theoretically, you could skirt around some of these restrictions. So I think when we're looking at these definitions, it would behoove us to, again, get very specific to,
That was kind of where I was going, because what the trend that I'm seeing is that there's a lot of these lots that are subdivided microscopically small and sold for ridiculously cheap. And people are like, hey, I can go down to Kenai and camp out on my lot and do whatever, or I'll send Billy Joe Bob down there and he'll just leave all of his stuff, his generator and whatnot, or I'll come down and I'll spend the summer down there growing vegetables and doing whatever. I mean, I just see the gamut, and I've been through the neighborhood and I've seen it. I've seen it on Wildwood, I've seen it on Third Avenue, I've seen it on First Avenue, where these lots have been sold and utilized, and you turn around, and all of a sudden there's a cabin there, and it's not zoned for a cabin. There's no permanent structure, there's no pad, there's no hookups to utilities. They got a generator running outside and they got an outhouse. So that's kind of where I'm going with these definitions is, yeah, I really think we need to make it as stringent as possible, because I think it's coming down the pipe where it's going to be challenged, is my thought.
A question for you, is that on the south side of the road or the north side of the road?
On the south side of Wildwood, as you approach the prison, on the left-hand side, there's
Okay, the north side.
yeah, there's quite a bit of tent camping and nefarious activity that's taking place there.
Is
And,
it behind the trees? Because I drive it every day and I never,
if you were to go the Spur Highway and you
Yeah.
were to turn right on Alpine,
yep,
and then head toward the prison, or
Right.
come back onto Wildwood, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That loop is what they're referencing.
okay.
Alpine has gotten about a handful of lots sold, but nobody's really put a dwelling out there. And so there's four-wheeler activity, and like I say, I've just been told that there's all kinds of nefarious
I'll
activity
look
taking
for it
place.
tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, yeah. The one on Third, there's an actual cabin with no basement or anything under it, and he had an outhouse out there for 2 summers in a row now, and he had a generator running. I mean, it was a nice enough looking cabin, but still, there's a house next to him, and I'm just like, how did that happen?
Good.
I think definitely size should be discussed in there as far as lot size. Because you get one of those 6,000 square foot lots, and they clear cut it, and they put 5 or 6 tents in there. It's not gonna be the same thing as if you had an acre.
We only have 7,500 square foot lots. That's the smallest.
Yeah, but I mean, still, 7,000 square foot lot, if you clear cut it and put a bunch of tents in there for the summer, it's gonna look a whole lot different than if you had an acre.
The city doesn't allow
With
clear
that.
cutting, do they?
If the premise is for us a single-family development, then that is the one we do not restrict. Every other multifamily, so duplex on up to commercial and anything else, we do require a site plan that does handle landscaping. So we do have restrictions on those, but if I were to buy, for example, a lot in the Black Gold Estates, one of the smaller 7,200 square foot, and I say to the city that I'm putting in a single-family house there, there's no limitation. I could clear cut it border to border.
But you would need to come in and talk to the city and get a permit?
If you were doing the process correctly, yes. But we have found where structures have gone up without the building official knowing. So we've been cracking down on that because we want people to be safe where they're staying. But if you follow the process, yes, there are safeguards. I guess that's going to be no matter what you do. But in the cases where there are certain structures that have gone up, a lot of those went up unpermitted.
But they could clear cut before permits or anything. If they bought a lot and it's zoned residential, they could come in and clear cut it without anything.
Generally, yes.
Currently?
Currently, especially because it does spell out that it does not apply to single family. So if in their mind, they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to put my house up eventually, so it's going to be single family, they could go clear cut it.
Yeah.
For us, we don't see the site plan until the building permit gets asked for. That's the first time we'll see a site plan or a landscape plan.
So what's the deterrent is there a deterrent you can put in the statute? Just basically, you go past the 6 days or whatever, however many days, there's a penalty, that type of thing?
So Title 13 handles a lot of the penalties and fines that the city can levy, that are civil penalties, not criminal. If we get this into code, then this could be treated as a code violation, which then could trigger a potential penalty if we get to a place where a landowner is not being compliant, does not want to become compliant, because we do kind of have some off-ramps. So if we say, hey, you're violating code, we want to bring you into compliance. Oftentimes they're like, oh, I didn't know, I'll fix it. And they go and fix whatever it was. When they're not, when either they're just not responsive or they're adamant that they can do whatever they want, if it does get escalated, it does eventually go to the city attorney, who does have the power by code to levy a fine on their property.
So we're talking about structures and tents. What about vehicles? So if you have a single family, you have a designated driveway and you have a designated allotment of how many cars? If you just have an empty lot, are you going to just all of a sudden bring in a bunch of cars?
We do have provisions for abandoned vehicles. There's a difference between abandoned vehicles and junk vehicles. Right now, it is not exceptionally clear. If the cars are in good working order and it is your property, in theory, in code right now, you could park them there. When they do become junked, which either means that their registration is, you have to have a couple, you have to have at least two, but your registration is lapsed, there's a window missing, flat tire, missing an engine. Once it gets to that, it becomes a junk vehicle, and that's another thing we can treat in code. Right now, we have parking minimums on lots, so if it is a developed lot, essentially anything over a studio apartment, which requires one, everything else requires at least two for residential. But in theory, you can have as many cars as you want, as long as they still fit on your lot and they're maintained. And if they are a project vehicle, so they would meet the quote-unquote definition of junk, but you're restoring it, keeping it covered with a car cover helps mitigate some of those things. So there are provisions of code to restrict it, but at the same time, we don't say you may only have 2 or 3 cars on your lot. Go forth and conquer. It's pretty subjective right now in code. And that's even without a primary structure, because the vehicle isn't like an accessory structure, so it doesn't fit into that. So it is, the only time I'll say that doesn't apply is RVs are that special category where you can't just have an RV on a lot that isn't, hooked up to certain facilities. Yes. Oh, they're in town. I assure you, they are in town. That one is abandoned, the one you're referring to. But after, and usually by then we get involved because someone's reported it. But if you're actively staying or actively using a lot just to store a car, right now there's not much to, until it becomes that abandoned. After a certain amount of time, if they don't move, that's when we'll.
No, again, I just bring this up because as we have these affordable, if you will, lots, and you have seasonal activities, fishing, people that are seasonally employed, you have that potential where somebody say, hey, I got a lot, I don't care, go store your car out there or your RV, or now bring your trailer out, and all of a sudden you've got a house, and now you've got a lot with just nothing but storage. So that's kind of where I was looking at.
And we can, there are definitions for what constitutes a storage yard, what constitute an RV park. So again, if it's 2 RVs or more, it's considered an RV park, even if it's not an actual commercial enterprise. So we do have some restrictions, but it may not be outside of the scope for us to look and see if any of these might apply as we look to address some of these other issues.
So it's not the city's objective right now to become the CC&Rs for neighborhoods.
That is correct. I think we just want to get a handle on the situation, knowing that we had concerns brought up, not only, and it wasn't just one specific neighborhood. We've had concerns from around the city that they don't feel that residential neighborhoods are the appropriate place necessarily for what is viewed by them to be a campground, or their definition of a campground, because it has multiple tents of people that don't live on that property. And/or quasi-permanent quasi-permanent temporary structures, where it looked like maybe one year was meant to be one thing, and then over time, it just graduated to where it pretty much stayed. That they felt that that wasn't the highest best use of a lot of those lots over there throughout town, just to, it felt, I'm not trying to use this word, but you don't know who you don't know. And it's one thing to have a neighbor that maybe you don't talk to all the time, but it's the same neighbor pulling into the house over and over and over again. But only seeing these people for a couple weeks, not knowing necessarily where they're from, they're there and then they're gone. You know, it just, to them, they didn't feel comfortable. That they had concerns, not that, there was no threatening, nothing threatening or anything like that, but it was just a little bit of unease because you didn't know who was staying next door, literally. But I can take a lot of these notes. Sorry, I've been scribbling all night, but I'll take a lot of this back, kind of put it through the ringer, see what we can come back, and then we'll have another, I'm certain if you guys are amenable to, have another work session where we kind of put some of these pieces together, start, you know, I'll pitch maybe a definition of what is a temporary dwelling, and then we can kind of fix that, you know, because I try to knock it out of the park, don't always hit it all the time, so sometimes I need an assist. But kind of put this into words, kind of shape out what it may look like, and then bring it back to refine, and if it takes a few iterations, it does, and then we can address this and be set.
Because I doubt, no matter how good your tent is, it's not going to survive a winter.
You'd be very strong if you could be I mean, it's chilly enough for me outside, and I'm not in a tent, so I couldn't imagine, but
I know, it becomes a safety issue or a noise issue,
About waste disposal, that type of thing. I'm thinking about people that are, like they've mentioned, come down to do dip netting and are staying, what about fish waste?
luckily, with the area that we were concerned about this year, they kept everything clean. They disposed of everything properly. They did have a dumpster on site, which was picked up shortly after everyone tore down everything and left. So that was addressed, but I could see where that is definitely an issue because we do have wildlife that likes fish.
Especially in that neighborhood.
I mean, that's one group of people,
Yeah.
you know, we're gonna have to take care of many different types of folks. They won't always be like that group.
Agreed, and you can take your fish anywhere and or any waste really, any refuse that you know, you don't want junk just blown away into the woods or whatever. So I think we, in our minds, keep up that, you know, maybe this started with fish waste, but it's going to be any kind of waste because not only wastewater, so hopefully you have some sort of sanitary facility to do that, but trash, you know, as humans consume things, there's some sort of refuse to get rid of. So I think coming up with something to address that may be appropriate.
So the definition on that, so are we looking at making a definition for a time frame of like 7 days, no more than 3 days camping on a lot? Or are we just looking at the definitions right now, or are we addressing time periods?
I think I'll definitely come with a rough draft of both, because I think, is the timing, is it the number and the duration that makes it a campground, or is there other definitions we need to add that aren't up here? Like I said, these are just to spur conversation. I think duration may also be appropriate to address.
And along those lines, is there any code that says you can call in for trash containment in your front yard along with outhouses or porta potties up to 3 to 4? Is there?
Having temporary, there's nothing for trash, that's all private. There's no provisions for that. And generally, if it's in a reasonable place to have access to get emptied up, sometimes those do fall in the front yard. But right now, unless you're having some sort of event, if you rent out a porta-john and have it in your front yard temporarily, because maybe you're getting your bathroom redone or something, in theory, there is no permit or anything needed for that. But we could look into that.
Yeah, I think of Linwood Lane. I'm sure you know what's on my mind. And so, yeah, as we address a giant trash can in the front yard and a temporary garage and a slew of things across one end of the yard to the other, as you get an empty lot with no permanent structure, I wonder, with how many porta potties would be okay, or how many trash cans when we have to have site restrictions if it's a fourplex or a triplex or a single family and there's no single family developed. So now are you asking to have it screened or not screened, and is that even an issue?
It hasn't been an issue yet. The junk, obviously, having the accessory structure in the front yard with the case that you're mentioning, those are issues, but the placement of a dumpster or the placement of a porta-john hasn't been brought to our attention yet. But we could definitely look into that. And if we're tying it to this, to these uses, it may be appropriate that they are located side yard or rear yard close to where the temporary structures are going to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're gonna start looking at tents and placement and stuff like that, and you're gonna include a porta potty, then I think it would be appropriate, 10 feet back from an easement, so it's not too visible from the road, or not 100 clear, or all trees cleared from the lot, only partial trees, or something to that effect, maybe, I don't know.
I like the idea, but as far as permitting porta potties, they're already paying for the porta potties.
No, I didn't mean permitting, I just meant verbiage to say if we're gonna go down and define this as a campground, and now you're gonna allow porta potties, how many are you gonna say is okay? I get the events everybody may or may not have, but all of a sudden, again, you just have this random person show up and they call in for 15 porta potties on a 7,000 square foot lot and 2 big dumpsters out front and 20 cars all of a sudden show up, so I was like, just some verbiage. In addition to your tent, you can place your porta potty here, and you may only have so many, or now you're classified as a commercial campground.
I appreciate all the feedback. This will give me quite a bit to get started on, and then we can, like I said, work in subsequent work sessions to get this refined and get it something that the city wants, that we feel comfortable with, and that hopefully the residents of Kenai also agree with.
I move to adjourn the Kenai Planning and Zoning Commission's work session at 6:50 PM.
I second.
I would like to call the November 12th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting to order. If you are able, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Keaton,
Here.
Commissioner Askett,
Here?
Commissioner Woodard,
Here.
Commissioner Kraus,
Here.
Commissioner Petty is here remotely. Commissioner Fikes
Here.
and Commissioner Earsley.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda? Commissioner Woodard.
I move to approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
I second.
Would the clerk please read the consent agenda items into record?
Item B1, the approval of minutes for the regular meeting of October 22nd, 2025, and that is your consent agenda.
Are there any public comments on the consent agenda items that were just read by the clerk? Are there any online that wish to speak?
There are no members online.
Are there any objections approving the agenda and consent agenda? Hearing no objections, the agenda and consent agenda are approved. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to anything that is not on the agenda? Moving on to item F, public hearings, resolution PZ 2025-30, recommending the approval of a conditional use permit for the operation of a small automotive sales business at 4586 Kenai Spur Highway, Davidson Homestead, Tract A in the Rural Residential Zoning District. Is there a motion to approve resolution PZ 2025-30? Commissioner Woodard.
I move to approve Resolution PZ 2025-30, recommending the approval of a conditional use permit.
I second.
Director Buechner, can we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair Earsley. All right. Here we go. The applicant is requesting to operate a small automotive sales business with a maximum of 10 vehicles on the open space in the southeast section of the property located at 4586 Kenai Spur Highway, located at the intersection of the Kenai Spur Highway and Strawberry Road. A conditional use permit, or CUP, as you may hear mentioned, is required to operate an automotive sales business in the Rural Residential Zoning District. Pursuant to Kenai Municipal Code 14.20.150 alpha, the intent of a conditional use permit is to allow some uses that may be compatible with the designated principal uses in specific zoning districts, provided certain conditions are met. Prior to granting a conditional use permit, the commission shall determine that the identified criteria, as outlined in KMC 1420-150E, conditional use permits review criteria are met. Criteria 1, the use is consistent with the purpose of this chapter and the purposes of the intent of the zoning district. The rural residential zone is intended to provide for low-density residential development and outlying in rural areas in a form which creates a stable and attractive residential development. The proposed development would not necessarily violate the character of the neighborhood as it will provide a practical amenity to residents with a focus on local, affordable transportation options on a spacious lot with ample parking. As a small car lot with a maximum of 10 cars, business would not generate heavy traffic or violate the residential character of the environment near the Kenai Spur Highway. Staff finds that the proposed use would not violate the intent of the rural residential zoning district. Criteria 2, the economic and non-economic value of the adjoining property and neighborhood will not be significantly impaired. The proposed automotive sales business will not impair the economic and non-economic value of the adjacent properties and neighborhood. As per the applicant, it will be designed to minimize disruption with limited inventory and minimal signage. The lot will align with stewardship, responsibility, and community care and provide a service that will benefit the peninsula community. The applicant plans to incorporate natural landscaping and aesthetics that will improve curb appeal while prioritizing professionalism, tidiness, and community respect. The lot will generate low traffic volumes and enhance the utility of the neighborhood by providing a practical amenity. Staff finds that the proposed use would not impair the economic and non-economic value of adjacent properties and neighborhood. Criteria 3, the proposed use is in harmony with the comprehensive plan. The land use plan from the 2016 comprehensive plan identifies the subject property within a mixed-use land use classification. The mixed-use land use classification is defined in the comprehensive plan that to be intended for a compatible mix of residential, retail, service, office, public, institutional, and recreational uses. Uses are co-located in an integrated way that supports sustained forms of transport, such as public transport, walking and biking, and increases neighborhood amenities. Compatibility issues are addressed through careful site layout and building design. The surrounding uses consist of a mixture of empty lots and single-family residences. All lots to the east, south, and west are zoned as rural residential. Lots to the north do consist of a mixture of rural residential 1, and limited commercial. As stated by the applicant in detail in the application letter, the proposed use of the property as proposed is consistent and in harmony with several goals of the 2016 comprehensive plan. Relevant goals. Goal 1, quality of life is to promote and encourage quality of life in Kenai. Meeting objectives Q2, to protect and rejuvenate the livability of existing neighborhoods. Q4, establish siting and design standards so that development is in harmony and scale with surrounding uses. Q5, update existing site design guidelines for commercial development, landscaping, setbacks, and parking. Goal 2, provide economic development to support the physical health of Kenai. Objective ED2, implement business-friendly regulations, taxations, and incentives to create a stable, positive climate for private investment. Goal 3, land use is to develop land use strategies to provide a forward-looking approach to community growth and development. Objective LU2, provide the infill of existing improved subdivision lots. Review zoning code to consider use of buffers and buffer zones to separate incompatible land uses. Review landscape ordinance to ensure buffers are required to protect neighborhoods. Ensure that the installation of basic public infrastructures is coordinated with the timing of development and the improvements are in place at the time impacts occur. Criteria 4, public services and facilities are adequate to serve the proposed use. The property already has established facilities on site to include well and septic, servicing the primary structure, electricity, trash removal, and access to a paved state-maintained road also are adequate. Criteria 5, the proposed use will not be harmful to the public safety, health, or welfare. There's adequate parking and buffer for the proposed use to minimize the impact of the surrounding areas. It is not anticipated that the conditional use will be harmful to the public safety, health, or welfare. As noted by the applicant, its low-impact design, minimal environmental footprint, and community serving purpose ensures safety through reduced hazards, protect health with no significant pollution or sanitation issues, and enhance welfare by meeting a local need without adverse impacts. Criteria 6, any and all specific conditions deemed necessary by the commission to fulfill the above-mentioned conditions. These may include, but are not limited to, measures relative to access, screening, site development, building design, operation of the use, and other similar aspects related to the proposed use. Staff finds that allowing a small automotive sales business does not cause any adverse impacts on the surrounding properties. Pursuant to Kenai Municipal Code 142280, C, notices of the public hearing for the conditional use were mailed to property owners within a 300-foot periphery of the subject property. City staff published notice of the public hearing in the Peninsula Clarion. City staff submitted an affidavit posting verifying a sign was placed on the parcel with information on the public hearing for the conditional use permit request. No public comments have been received at the time of this report. Staff finds that the proposed conditional use permit to develop and operate a small automotive sales business with a maximum of 10 cars at 4586 Kenai Spur Highway on the property described as Davidson Homestead Tract A meets the criteria for issuance of conditional use permit as set forth in subsections E1 through E6 of Kenai Municipal Code 1420-150, and hereby recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission adopt Resolution PZ 2025-30, approving the conditional use permit subject to the following conditions. One, that any development or use of the property shall comply with all applicable federal, state of Alaska, and city regulations, regardless of whether or not the requirements are listed as conditions for the approval of the conditional use permit. And two, upon request, the applicant or applicant's representative shall meet with city staff for an on-site inspection.
Can I have the applicant come up to the mic and state your name?
Hi, guys. My name is Lauren Lee Enzi. I am the applicant for tonight. Did I do it right? Oh, thank you. So I only made 4 packets, but there's 2 to each packet. So, and I figured we could share and, I think that is that 4? There you go.
We'll share.
Thank you. What is handing out right now is just a quick overview, just a visual. I believe in visuals are easier to maintain to understand kind of what's going on. The first little packet is a overview of my business plan. It includes all of the permits that I have applied for, I have paid for, and I do have, all the way up to I have my surety bond, and the only thing that we're waiting on my business license as a dealer is a location with a sign in a building. That is all I'm waiting approval for. The second page, when you go to the second packet, is a picture of what I hope to see my office and my sign look like. Very, very minimal, very natural, very Alaskan style, very beautiful and cleaned up. The next page is a diagram of my actual property, an outline of my 3 acres, and the small 7% area that I'm asking to use the conditional permit for. Behind that is a pie graph showing just how small of the area that I'm asking for. And on the very last are 2 actual in-color photos of the lot that I'm asking to clean up. I took right before it snowed.
Can you state your address just for the record?
4586 Kenai Spur Highway. And when you're ready, I can begin my little speech I have here for you.
Are there any commissioners that have questions for the applicant?
I was going to wait till she was, but I do have a question. Will you be servicing vehicles at
No,
this
ma'am.
location? Thank you.
No, ma'am. Strictly already detailed, parked nicely and neatly, no more than 10, and I really just I want to start with about 5. And I will cover all that in my speech as well. Right? Good evening, members of the commission, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Lauren Lee Enzi. I live in the first house on Strawberry Road, where it meets the Spur Highway. I've called the Kenai Peninsula my home for many years, as a mother, a wife, a daughter, and as someone who's built her life from the ground up. I've worn a lot of hats here on the peninsula, from being an armed security officer, a cannery aide, a cab driver, dispatcher, bartender, waitress, and even a car salesman. As a single mother for years, I've worked hard for everything that I have, and every job I've taken has taught me something about people, perseverance, and pride in where I live. Tonight, I'm here asking for approval for a conditional use permit for my small business, Summit 106 Auto Sales, a faith-led, locally driven dream that I've built with my own hands and my entire heart. I take great pride in being part of this neighborhood. Strawberry Road has a quiet royal charm that makes Kenai so special, and that's exactly what I want to preserve. My property is just under 3 acres, and the small portion I'm using for this project sits right near my existing driveway, less than 10% of my total property. There will be no new roads or driveways. In fact, the entrance will simply fork off of my current driveway, keeping everything self-contained and private. That corner of land has been covered in fallen beetle killed spruce and debris for years, and I've already begun cleaning, leveling, and restoring it by hand this last summer. It's been a safety concern, overgrown, unlit, and hard to see when you're turning off the spur. And by clearing it, maintaining it, and adding soft downward lighting, I'll be improving the safety and visibility of that area for everyone who drives by. This isn't a big dealership. It's a small, tidy, home-based business designed to beautify and utilize a portion of my land that is currently underused, not to commercialize or change the character of the area. The space will be graveled, clean, and bordered with a simple rustic Alaskan style, nothing flashy, nothing out of place, just neat and natural. Lighting will be minimal and downward facing for safety and security reasons. Each vehicle will be professionally detailed, parked neatly, and displayed tastefully, more like an extension of my own home than a business lot. Summit 106 is planned to be appointment-only business, not a retail operation. There'll be no test drives through the neighborhood, no loud work or noise, no traffic increase beyond what a normal residential driveway may have. Most of my transactions will take place online or one-on-one with customers by appointment. This is not a rezoning. This property remains residential. I understand and respect every condition that comes with operating under the city's guidelines. This is a conditional use meant to operate quietly, responsibly, and under oversight. Over the last few weeks, I've heard the concerns of neighbors and what they have voiced, and I want to thank every single person who took the time to show up tonight. Whether in support or out of concern, that tells me that people care deeply about this community, and I respect that more than anything. There have been worry that this could make Strawberry Road feel like a K-Beach frontage, or that it would open the door to more businesses, but that's simply not what this is. Summit 106 is small, tidy, faith-led, not a commercial expansion. Each conditional use permit is reviewed individually, and mine applies to my property alone. Not a precedent, not a trend, just one small, responsible project. There's also concern that it could affect safety and property value, but what I'm doing is the opposite. Cleaning up a neglected, overgrown corner of my property and replacing it with a maintained, well-lit, attractive area. That's an improvement to visibility and not a detraction. As for expansion, that's never been my plan. If my family's dream ever grows beyond this small corner of my property, that next step would be to go to town, not here in my neighborhood where I live and raise my family. This is where I want to begin, not where I plan to expand. Some have asked why I call it faith-led. To me, that means it's built on integrity, hard work, and gratitude. It's not a church. It's not a nonprofit. It's a business built with purpose and heart. It means I choose honesty over shortcuts and relationships over profit. I just have a little bit more, you guys. I've spent most of my adult life in auto sales, and I've seen what I don't want to be. Impersonal, high-pressured, or disconnected from people. Summit 106 will be the opposite. It'll be local, transparent, and personal. A place where people feel respected, where they know who they're dealing with, and where their needs actually matter. Beyond sales, I plan to partner with Alaska Cab, Love Incorporated, and a few local church programs to help replace unsafe vehicles and support transportation needs for those who can't afford the high costs, especially the elderly and disabled who struggle to find reliable options. I plan to offer seasonal and summer vehicle rentals to both locals and visitors that are affordable, safe transportation options here on the peninsula. From families here for fishing season to residents needing short-term use, Summit 106 will find a local gap, keeping that service here on the Kenai where they don't have to go to Anchorage. It's not about getting rich. It's about building a small, purpose-driven business that creates safety, reliability, and opportunity while giving my family a way to grow through honest work. And in closing, at this heart, this isn't about changing Strawberry Road. It's about improving one small piece of it. It's about transforming an overgrown, unsafe corner into something maintained, safe, and full of care. I don't have investors or big money behind me. I have faith, work ethic, and this one piece of land that I've worked really hard to purchase myself. I'm not asking for a shortcut. I'm asking for a chance to start with what I already have. This is how people like me get a chance to begin, by working with what's in front of them and believing that small things, when done right, can grow into something meaningful. One day, I do hope to expand, maybe hire people, create jobs, or to offer even more options for those who need it the most. But that growth starts here, on this property and in this moment. I've followed every rule, met every requirement, and stayed transparent in every step. And all I'm asking for is a chance to prove that something small and beautiful can uplift both a family and a community. I know not everyone will see this the same way, but I want to thank every single person who spoke up, because disagreement doesn't mean division, it means that we all care. And at the end of the day, we share the same love for this little corner of Kenai. So whether this is approved or not tonight, I'll keep showing up with the same faith, perseverance, and pride that I have in this city that led me here tonight. Because Summit 106 isn't a business name. It's not just a business name. It's a symbol for what's possible when you start small, stay honest, and let faith guide the rest. Thank you for your time, your consideration, and your service for our community.
Commissioner Pikes.
Through the chair, I have to say, sitting up here for a few months now or so, that was one of the more thorough and detail-oriented testimonies. So my
Thank
hats
you.
off to you. You did put a lot of thought, research, and commitment into your plan. So that is awesome. I'm very familiar with this part, and I'm very excited to hear that you would be applying lighting to that area, because that is kind of a high-impact area for potential accidents. So
Yes.
that, I would think, would be a positive. And I myself will be voting in favor of it. I've reviewed the application, and I am in quite a bit of agreement on a lot of the findings that the staff had in their report. And so I think this would be a plus to the area.
Thank you.
Can you stay to respond to any questions the public might have?
Yes, of course.
I'd like to open up to the public if anyone would like to speak to this CUP.
I'm Dan Burkell, and I live on Ross Road, just nearby, and love the area.
Dan, can you approach the mic, please?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. There we go. All right. Yeah, thanks. So anyway, this is the first I heard of it was today. And I really enjoy the area, and I built a home in that area and raised a family in that. And so, again, I guess I'm more out of concern just not knowing what was being proposed. I worry about, clutter and things like that turn into bigger messes and things like that. And you see that in neighborhoods, and it does detour from the value of the neighborhood and things. So would that site be along Strawberry Road, or is it along the spur where the cars would be?
It would be right there in the corner where my driveway is, right there where those trees are falling down. So it's immediately as you turn on the Strawberry, there's off of.
Is it, okay.
So it is immediately off Strawberry Road within a few feet. As soon as you turn onto Strawberry Road off of K Beach is my driveway.
Right.
And I have a very large driveway
On
that
the
you would
left,
immediately
right.
turn onto that will fork into that entrance.
And then are the cars and that going to be on Strawberry frontage or on Spur frontage?
They will be on the Strawberry frontage and lined up nice and neat.
Okay, along that area. Okay. And then would the max amount be 10 cars, or would that be able to expand?
I will never go over 10 vehicles. My plan is to be 5 cars rotated out, or 5 to 10 cars rotated out regularly. If they don't sell, they will go to auction. I've ran car and helped with car dealerships for a very long time. I don't believe in clutter. And if you see my organization and the paperwork that I provided and my speech, I put a lot of time and effort into keeping things clean, maintained, and my OCD just will not let me be one of those places that packs vehicles in like sardines. Of course, thank you so much. Would you guys like me to go over there and let them speak on here? Does it matter?
Through the chair, typically we'll have it open to the public. We'll go ahead and allow everybody to comment, and then we'll have you come back up for rebuttal is probably the best way. Then we're not kind of going back and forth, and we can kind of absorb everybody's testimony.
Can I ask a question of the gentleman? Sir, would you mind coming back to the? Sorry about that. You've had a chance to hear what she had to say, and now maybe look at the site plan for a minute. This was your first time hearing, so I'm just
Right.
curious what your thoughts are now.
Yeah, I love the progress, and I mean, we have to make livings around here, and I realize how hard that can be, so I don't oppose people being entrepreneurs and trying to do things that'll help out. I just, again, the value of our homes and everything else is in that area, and so when people drive by, yeah, it's either going to be that's very classy, or that's a negative. I don't want to be around this area, and I put a lot of money and time into my home, and so obviously that's a value to me, as long as safety in that. But again, I don't oppose people trying to better, what they have, but I just wanted to be sure that there were going to be pretty strict guidelines on how it was run. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Sherry Innes. I live on Strawberry Road, 39402 North Strawberry Road. I reside there, I've resided there for some 45 years. And I also own property, Strawberry Fields Forever subdivision, that is adjacent to 2 other subdivisions in the immediate area. I'm concerned about this because Strawberry, that area in question is zoned, and it's zone residential. And to me, that should be the end of the discussion. It's zone residential. It's not zone commercial. It's not zoned for businesses of any temporary or permanent nature. It's zoned residential. The people who live in the Strawberry Road area and 3W subdivision and the new subdivision just off Strawberry Road, which would be behind the used car lot, they live where they live because it's residential. Most of the lots are large. When I subdivided my land, I made the lots almost 7 acres so that everyone would have an area around their home that looked like rural Alaska. I'm concerned about a car lot that would be at basically the entrance to at least 2 of the subdivisions there as you go on. That changes the whole flavor, the nature of the area where we live. Today I took some time, and by the way, it really surprises me to learn that all you have to do is put a pretty small sign up at your driveway when you're proposing or requesting a change that affects as many people and as much property as this one does. I personally did not know about this proposal here until Sunday night when I read something on the Neighborhood Watch website. And as it turns out, almost nobody seemed to know about it because I began asking around the neighborhood. And today, I departed my house about 3:30, and I went over to 3W subdivision and the other subdivision, and I knocked on doors, and anybody who was home, I explained that there was a meeting going on here tonight, and a proposal had been made to put a used car lot, a small used car lot up on the Spur Highway at the entrance to where we all live. It would basically affect all of us. And no one knew about it, number one. And then number two, no one was in favor of it at all because we live in a residential area. Now, I would almost think the city of Kenai would like to leave it the way it is because it's one of the few stretches of highway that actually has pleasing aesthetics as you drive down the highway. You cut off onto Strawberry or on 3W Ross Street entrance, and you'll go back there and you realize there are a lot of people living back there in houses with trees all around, and they keep their property attractive and nice and so forth. But the aesthetics as you drive down Strawberry are one of what we think of as rural Alaska. As I looked over, and of course, I just found out about this Sunday night, and I teach a class, so I've been studying for my class, and I had very little time to really come into town. I wish I had come early enough to pick this up, because some of the things that affect our neighborhood, and this would affect our neighborhood. There were a lot of commendable things that were said, emoting and personal and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is, this is a neighborhood and it's zoned residential only. And it said some of the things that Planning and Zoning Commission finds is that it's intended to provide low density, that's true, and development and so on and so forth. The proposed development would not necessarily violate the character of the neighborhood. That's not true. A used car lot affects the neighborhood, the community, the flavor of the neighborhood. And that's exactly, no matter how attractive you make it, no matter how nice you want to keep it, the building is nice or whatever you have planned to do there, it is still a used car lot and it affects our neighborhood. And so that doesn't pass muster on that particular one. And also that area, especially along the Spur Highway there, it's not intended to be developed commercially. This would open the door for somebody else coming along, the next buyer of the house, the next buyer of the property, or the property next door. It would open the door for them applying for a limited use permit. And then that would completely change the character of our neighborhood. I wish I had had more time to prepare my remarks, but I am very concerned about putting a business in a residential area, and then the nature of the business is not attractive to a neighborhood like we have there. We're very happy with our rural Alaska. We feel, because we keep our neighborhood the way we do, our three neighborhoods the way we do, we have the advantage of being close to the city of Kenai, close to the city of Soldotna, and yet we have the feel of being in rural. If you put a business up on the highway there, it will completely change that flavor of the neighborhood. And I haven't met one person who lives in the 3 subdivisions who thinks it's okay to put a business up there regardless of your sad story or your dream coming true or anything else like that. Wanting to help people and not trying to make a lot of money and have something for the kids. All of that's commendable, but it's not the right place. This is not the right area for that dream to be fulfilled. So I'm open to any questions, and I'm very hard of hearing, so if you could really speak up for me, that will help us both.
Through the chair. So having heard the applicant's testimony testify, she stated that she was starting out with 5 to maybe a maximum of 10 cars. And I heard that she had a 3-acre lot. If she were to have a triplex on her 3-acre lot, she would already be exceeding 6 to maybe even 8 to 10 cars. So, and I heard her say that she was only going to be I'm asking you if that was your concern, was all the cars out there in the business. It didn't really sound like it was going to be a normal 9 to 5 approach of business. It sounded like it was appointments only. So I was just stating that you didn't have enough time to prepare, and I guess my question is now that you heard the testimony, does that matter or change anything?
Here we go. I'm not sure exactly what your question is, but my concern is we live in an area that is zone residential, and this is a business, and it really doesn't matter. Although you put 10 cars out next to the highway, and it takes up a lot more room than your mind projects. It looks like a car lot, and it's a business. And this area is a residential area. So my concern is we would be this would be opening the door for future development along an area that has very pleasing aesthetics. And the whole idea of putting a business there is objectionable for all the people who would be affected by having a business there.
Through the chair, I just wanted to ask one follow-up question. Are you familiar with the company that's on Strawberry Road, that's a priority delivery company that has several vehicles parked out there on Strawberry Road?
I'm not sure where you're talking about. Is it beyond?
Just beyond the mailboxes, where the cluster boxes are. So I think that's referred to as North Strawberry.
Well, I'm familiar with Strawberry Road, so if is it beyond the city? Is it out in the borough
No, it's on
side?
Strawberry Road, it's just beyond the mailbox clusters on the left-hand side.
Oh, you mean straight?
Straight down
When you go
Strawberry
straight
Road.
down.
Yep.
Yes, unfortunately, they are in the borough. They're in Ridgeway. They can do whatever they want on their property there. There are actually businesses way back on Strawberry back there, but they live in the borough. It's not zoned for residential only. They can do what they want to, and I defend their right to do that. But in an area that's zoned for residential only, where people have purposely bought a piece of land that allows them to have trees growing on their property, and they're secluded from the busy street and so on and so forth, they deserve to be respected for the investment that they made in their property, and to change that zoning just because someone wants to put a used car lot on it is unfair to the people who live back in those 3 subdivisions.
Mrs. Ennis, thank you so much for coming in today. I wanted to ask you real quick, are you familiar with the borough's ability to zone platted neighborhoods?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Sure. Are you familiar with the borough's ability to zone platted neighborhoods that are not within the city? your neighborhood, for instance, could get zoned.
Oh, sure, I know that, I know actually even some of the restrictions that they have, even though it's unincorporated, there are rules, there are
Right.
regulations.
So if the borough deems it a positive thing for the neighborhood, they can zone an area. So changes can be made to what's allowed. I just wanted to make
Yes.
sure that you understood.
Oh, yes, yes, I'm familiar with that. And also, you know, we live in a democracy, the big word today. And so everyone, if they have the opportunity to speak up, if they object to something, and they have a vested interest in it, that's what I'm doing, exercising. And I'm speaking, actually, I discovered I didn't have a clue how many people felt the way I do, as far as nature and the aesthetics and all of the trees and the moose and the animals that go through and the privacy that we have. But I've been surprised to find out that all of my neighbors and the people who live up on the, down adjacent to where this would go, they object to it as well. I didn't know until I went around, started knocking on doors. But all of the neighbors that I encountered object to an exception being made to the residential status of our neighborhood. Any other questions?
Having lived in that area a while, was there at one time a nursery on Strawberry Road, just as you came off of the
I'm
Spur
sorry, I
Highway?
could not hear it, but
As you come off of the Spur Highway, turning left to your right, as you're heading down Strawberry Road, on the right-hand side, there used to be a nursery. That would be considered a commercial business.
Yes, there was, yes.
Okay. So there has been commercial activity in that area.
Yes, and I think she started it out as just a hobby, and then she did, probably applied for a permit, I don't know. It was the kind of thing where you drove around a circle to go out and you bought plants. But yeah, that was, she did pass away, her husband passed away, and it's no longer operating that way, and hasn't been for a few years.
Thank you.
That's, I'm sorry, but in my way of thinking as a resident there, that's a big difference between a used car lot and a plant nursery.
Go ahead, Commissioner Woodard.
I'm curious if she were to put up a privacy wall to where you could not see it from the back side, just from the highway, would that help you out?
It's zoned residential. It's not zoned for a business.
I can appreciate what you're saying there. I live in a residential area also. I appreciate that. But if they were to put up a privacy wall to where the neighbors did not see the cars,
It's not
that
zoned
help?
for business. It's zoned for
I
residential.
understand that.
Commissioner Keaton.
Through the chair, you're aware that they've applied for a conditional use permit and what that means?
Say that again.
You're aware that this is an application for a conditional use permit?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and so they're asking to be accepted, not accepted, but accepted, right? They're asking
Yeah,
for an
they're
exception.
asking for an exception.
That's
That's right.
Okay,
Yes,
just
and that's
clarifying
what I oppose to, is having it, anything changed from residential to anything else. And I also understand that it would be something she would renew every year and so forth. Yeah.
And just to make clarification, that this is not going to change the zoning. This is going to allow one use on one parcel. So they're not asking to be rezoned to a commercial use. The use itself is commercial in nature, but
Yes.
it is not a full-scale rezone where Any other neighboring, as you mentioned, that any other ones that may want to come, they would have to ask permission, but the conditional was just site-specific. It's not a blanket.
Right.
rezone.
I do understand that, and thank you for bringing that up and mentioning it, because I do understand it. However, you know, I've been around long enough to see if there's a toe in the door, then it opens the door. And when she sold her property, somebody else might look there and say, there's a building on it, there's already a gravel pad, I'm going to put blah, blah on there. And so I don't like the idea of making an exception at all to the residential status of our neighborhoods, because it opens the door for something else. I've seen that happen many times. And we don't want our area to change there. There's no reason. And Ms. Summit also said that she plans to look for a bigger lot in town eventually anyway. Well, what would happen to the existing lot there then? I don't know. Somebody would see it as an opportunity, a commercial opportunity. Also, why even do it there? Why would you buy property that you knew was zoned strictly for residential with plans to put in a business? So I don't know, it just sounds a little dishonest to me. Any other questions? No? Okay.
Are there any further questions? You can please approach the mic and state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Connie Taplin. I'm on 39300 North Strawberry Road. Question, she had to ask for the zone, so if she sells or moves, does the buyer have that right, or do they have to ask as well? Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
To confirm that if she were to sell her property, the buyer could request a CUP transfer, which would come back in front of this body, assuming that nothing changed. The use would go from, it would be apples to apples. They would not be able to buy it and then put it in a lumberyard.
I'd just like to make a quick clarification for the record. We keep referring to the lot as 3 acres. It's 2.58, just in case anyone was.
Okay, I'm Diane Chaplin. I've lived on Strawberry Road since 1970. That's over half a century. And I've been around the corner where you turn from the highway onto Strawberry. And the remark that was made about the lighting being inadequate and the conditions that made a wreck possibility, unsafe turn. I have never seen an accident there. I've never read one in the paper. I know absolutely nothing has happened on that corner. And about the lighting right across the highway, the spur highway, there's a giant public huge light that shines in the area. There's no visible disability at all as far as driving around that corner. So the safety concerns at the corner there were brought up. I just have to dispute. Other than that, I want to add 100% of everything Sherry said and count me as double on that, because I appreciate how
well, she presented everything that I was thinking, and she did a nice job. So thanks for having me up here.
I just have a question real quick. Are you familiar with 390064 Strawberry Road?
Yes, I drive by it every day, have
Okay.
for half a century.
Okay. That would be the trucking operation that has all kinds of trucks parked out in front of it.
So, have you been down there and seen that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because that's like way down, you don't ever see that on Strawberry.
Okay, that's still, but that is still a continuation of Strawberry?
No, it isn't.
No?
No,
No?
no.
No, but no, just for clarification, I get the visual, but I'm just saying that physical road as you travel down is still called Strawberry,
It's
right?
called Strawberry, but Strawberry Road is divided right down the middle. My side of the road is Ridgeway. The other side, just
Okay,
across the
okay.
road is Kenai.
Oh, okay,
Like it's a dirt road, so
okay.
Strawberry turns and keeps going, but the dirt road and the business that you're thinking of.
Yes.
Is at the end of that dirt road, and you don't see no sign
Across from the farm?
across from all its farm.
Yeah,
But
okay,
it's
okay,
it's
okay,
not in
thank you,
Kenai,
thank you.
though. It's
Yeah.
not in Kenai. It's in the Ridgeway.
You don't see it on Strawberry, period.
Okay,
You have to go down looking for it.
That's true.
okay.
Okay, I'm done.
Would the applicant like to respond to any of the questions or statements?
All right, so like I had mentioned earlier, I respect every single opinion that has been expressed tonight. As an owner of the house on Strawberry, every tree on my property is beautiful to me. Everything going on right there, the condition, being able to turn there, and that Royal area is beautiful and something that I admire when I purchased my property. I didn't purchase my property to start a business. I purchased my property when I was a single mom, just trying to get a foot in the door and find a place to live and dream. But now my dream has become a reality. When you live as on the first house there on Strawberry, I can assure you accidents do happen there. I know, because it jams up my driveway. It does see the lights through all of my front of my house. It is a dangerous place. My son is 13, walks to the bus every day. Not to mention standing in the dark with that one little light pole across the street that you might see from that corner. There's bear, there's moose, and it's dangerous. And we've talked about putting more light in just for him. So I do understand that, but I am the least dishonest, like mentioned person that I could possibly know. And I can tell you, living in that place, in that area, as much as I love it, it does have its scary moments. And the lighting and that kind of stuff is one of those things that I kind of hold dear to myself. As for the conditional use permit, it is conditional. And I know that if I ever leave my house, which I doubt it, but if I do, I mean, I might want to live somewhere else. I know the next person, my neighbor down the road, your neighbors, can do the same paperwork that I did to be here tonight. They can pay the same fees. They can spend weeks and months putting together the paperwork that I put together to make tonight happen, if they want to. But it's effort. And I work on what I say. When I want to do something, I put every single ounce of my being working 3 jobs to make this happen tonight for myself and my family. I understand that I have a sad story, but I bet everyone in here has a sad story, and all I did was use it to explain that that's where I came from. That wasn't to make anyone feel sorry for me, because I am proud of where I stand tonight. I am proud to say that I have the possibility to build something of my own, and I am thrilled to be able to be here tonight, regardless as if it gets approved or not. And I'm thankful you guys are here, because I know it matters. As for the people that you ran into on Strawberry Road, I'm interested, because I walked my dogs and I talked to a dozen people who said quite the opposite. I had a couple concerns, and I had that same booklet of papers that I gave you guys. And when I left there, they were happy. I had 0 complaints. On Facebook, the post that brought you here tonight was one I was in on. We've spoke many times. On top of that, I put my own post on our Strawberry Page Road that you are on in every comment. So I know you've seen it. I know that a lot of people did, and if there was complaints, they would be here tonight, just like you are. And the only people that I had complaints and tried to speak with were the people that are here tonight, and I tried to send you the same paperwork I gave them and explain, but I was met with aggression. So I apologize for that. I'm not an aggressive person. I am just trying to make my dream work and speak my reality. Is there any questions?
Yeah, the little house that you're using for your office, is that will be, it's temporary, it could be moved at any time?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, and that brings up the next. If I were to ever move, I don't feel like my lot would be any different than somebody else clearing it for personal reasons and keeping their personal vehicles there as storage. I plan to have it way cleaner than that. I drove down Strawberry. There were so many yards that broke down vehicles and had more than 8 to 10 vehicles just at one household that were broke down and haven't moved in years. I can't even do that in my own personal driveway, much less allow my personal business reflect me in that direction. And I would never allow that to happen. So I do agree with that. The apartment complex, there's vehicles everywhere. This would be a simple amount of vehicles that are constantly being rotated and taken really well care of myself. I do understand that not all vehicle is beautiful. I do understand I might have some beaters with heaters. I do understand, but there's going to be a family that needs that beater with a heater. And I'm going to make sure it's reliable and that it's affordable and that they can get that. So those are a couple things that I did want to mention there. Oh, and one more thing, I am so sorry. If you noticed when there's a little yellow sign right by my stop sign there on Strawberry Road, and underneath it is a big white sign that says auto repair. And it points an arrow down Strawberry Road. I do understand that there are working businesses that don't have all the permits and didn't have the time or the money to stand in front of you guys today. I just want to know that on top of that, I'm proud, if they can make it work without a problem, I understand, but I want to be honest and I want to do things the correct way. I'd also like to mention one last thing. On the Facebook post that we were speaking to everybody, I had very few that declined. I had a couple that were all for it. Of the people that were all for it, they did mention, I have more vehicles in my driveway than you're even planning to have on your lot, and we got a laugh out of it. And I had one lady who told me to give up my dream and grow peonies. So I guess it's okay as long as the business reflects what the lady would like. That's all I have to say, guys. I'm sorry. It's a flower. They're beautiful, but I can't keep a plant alive for the life of me.
Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak to this matter any further? Approach the mic and state your name and address again, please.
Okay, there are some things that just need to be clarified. There are businesses on Strawberry Road. They are not in the city of Kenai. The 3 subdivisions that would be affected by this used car lot are in the city of Kenai. That's why we're having this meeting. They're zoned residential. The other businesses are in the borough. They're in Ridgeway. And so they're not affected by this. It's not relevant for their situation. This meeting is not relevant. If they have cars all around, also from the Spur Highway to Carver, which is the end of where Strawberry ends on the pavement, on the road there, there are no houses with junky cars around. There are no houses with, as a matter of fact, they're pretty nice houses along that stretch. I live along that stretch, and I have for many years. So that isn't true. Also, I have lived since '67 on the property there. And it's a safe intersection, Strawberry and the Spur Highway. There are no blind spots. I have no idea where that comment could have come from because it's well-lit and it's wide open. The city made a nice job when they paved Strawberry there. So that is not a dangerous spot that needs to be made safe. I'm not opposed to somebody having a dream. I even said that to Ms. Semick. Good for you, you're having a dream. But this is residential. This is zoned residential, and the people bought it because it was zoned residential. And your dream can be fulfilled, but not there. It's the wrong location, the right dream, but the wrong location. So, you know, I could go on and talk about my sad story or my dreams or any of that, but I think it's irrelevant. If the people who live in the neighborhood do not want to have a used car lot at the entrance to Strawberry Road, I don't see why an exception should be made for anyone. That's the bottom line. And I am all for entrepreneurship, for building your dream and all of that. It's nothing personal. Although I do have to say, when I came in, Ms. Summit was at the entrance and I smiled and said hello, and she goes, and didn't even say, which I figured that's who it was, never having met her before. But it seems like that has no place. Those personal stories and all of that has no place in what we're here for tonight, which is to say the people in the area don't want the zoning, any exceptions made to the zoning, and it's zone residential, and that's why we live where we live, and that's why we chose to live, to buy the property that we bought. That's all I have to say on it.
Is there anyone online who wishes to speak?
More preparation, there would have been more people here.
Commissioner Kraus.
When we have a conditional use permit request, do we send out a letter to the neighboring properties?
Yes, code requires that any properties within 300 feet of the, and periphery in all directions, get a written notice. It is also put in the newspaper for a public hearing, approximately 2 to 3 weeks, depending on when the paper's schedule falls. And then everything is put on to the website for each meeting a week prior so that anyone can look to see what's on the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Bruckner.
Yes, it's 300 feet from every single edge of her property out in a buffer, so it looks like a big donut if you look at it on a map.
Seeing no one else wishing to speak, we will bring it back to the commission. Discussion from the commission.
I'm going to be in support of this, but I believe that because she's gone through the process and she's met the criteria for that process to be given the opportunity to bring it before our panel, I would have a hard time finding a reason why not to vote for it.
Commissioner Woodard.
So I'd have to agree. She does fill the criteria. She's provided a very clean outlook on what she is going to do. It is a temporary setting. It can be removed at any time, and it is conditional. It isn't forever. It's at the beginning. It's not within your neighborhood. Coming off the road, a lot of times, I just got back from being in the States. There's all kinds of businesses on the road, and you go into a subdivision. It's not unusual. And I understand the thing about the residential, because I do. I don't want a car lot next to me. Well, I kind of had one, but it's gone now. But I will be in favor.
Can we call for a vote?
I'm in favor.
Commissioner Keaton,
Yes.
Commissioner Petty,
Yes.
Commissioner Kraus,
Yes.
Commissioner Fikes,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodard,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Isley.
I'm in favor.
Resolution PZ 2025-30 is passed.
Please note that there is a 15-day period that an aggrieved party can file an appeal with the clerk's office. Item G, unfinished business, we have none. New business, discussion with the directive from Kenai City Council to review and make recommendations to update Kenai Municipal Code 14-10/subdivision regulations. I'd like to open the discussion.
Thank you, Vice Chair Isley. I had a quick memo. I won't read it all the way through, but because the title kind of gives it away. But the administration has identified housing as a high priority or development topic within the city. We have been approached by large and small scale developers over the preceding months that include some informal project concepts. Their initial concepts go everywhere from greenfield, which is never been developed land, all the way to infill, kind of filling in one or two lots here and there throughout the city. Questions were raised during those concept discussions and have largely centered on what is allowable and what is not. Public Works has been working on road design standards and are actively working on water and wastewater standards as well. A lot of this is spelled out explicitly in Kenai Code in 14.10. We don't think necessarily that maybe getting into that level of detail is what we intend to do in code, and it may be better to refer to a policy that is still adopted by council and is still, it's a little more nimble. So if as development patterns change, as standards change because engineering standards change, it may be more appropriate to update a policy versus doing code. So the recommendation was to look at our subdivision regulations, what we have now, and then when we get the new policies, to review those policies to see if that meets the intent of what we're doing in code so that we can get out of our own way, essentially, when it comes to development, and have a very clear, communicable standard. So when developers come in, we can say, here's your road design policy, here's your water and wastewater design policy, and there's no, we can go on a case by case if there's a slight variation that needs to happen, but 99 times out of 100, we would have something that's adhering to that policy and only making a variance or something if the situation warrants. So, sorry. This may entail few more discussions and/or work sessions as we bring stuff forward. Kind of see how that pans out, but council is keen on us working on Title 14 just to make it the best it can be. And right now there's some gray areas and some confusing areas, and we're just trying to clean a lot of that up so that we can make Kenai easy to develop in, both residential but also commercial and anything else that comes in, especially with some pending announcements that may or may not be coming. We want to make sure that we're on the front end we're not scrambling to react to what's going on.
Alaska's Resource Development had a huge meeting today in Anchorage, as people might know, and it's sounding pretty positive for the LNG project, so it's exciting that people are approaching the city with some ideas. I look forward to seeing what those are.
Moving on to item I, reports. Director Buettner, may we have your report, please?
You'll be pleased to know that I do not have a report, but we did cancel our meeting right before Thanksgiving, so our next one will be in December, and we only have at least one on one day, the 10th.
I have no report, but thank everybody for their time and commitment. Commissioner Fikes, may we have your KPB planning report, please?
Yes, we met on October 27th and had a couple things on there. Let's see, we had a building setback encroachment permit before us in the Funny River area. There was a portion of a shop that was remaining in the 20-foot building setback. There was no testimony, no conflict. It was ruled that that was approved. And then we had another building setback encroachment permit, and this one was in the Anchor Point area. And this permit was for a portion of a house and a covered porch to remain in the 20-foot building setback. There was some testimony on that, and that one actually also was approved. And that was the flavor of the evening, because we had another building setback encroachment. And this one was going to be in the Sterling area. And the building setback, the permit was a portion of a newly constructed residential. So again, there was testimony on this because it was newly constructed and it was in the setback. So we had testimony on that, but I'm having trouble reading my own notes here. Oh, there were several findings. Oh, that's what it was. Okay. We cited several findings and standards that were met. And so even though it was new construction, it ultimately was approved and granted a setback. But that one, we did flesh out a lot of testimony and stuff because it was new construction. Then we went into a utility vacation. This one was for the city of Kenai. Vacate a 20-foot wide utility easement along a proposed vacated interior lot line and a 10-foot wide utility easement along a southwesterly lot line in the Valhalla subdivision, and that one was approved. We had 5 plats before us. All of them were reviewed and all of them were passed. And there was no director's comments. I think he was still on vacation.
Councilmember Casina, may we have your report, please?
Yes, and I apologize if this is too long. This is the first time I've been in planning and zoning, so by all means, if it is, please let me know, and I'll try to condense it before the next meeting. But so this last meeting we had was last Wednesday on the 5th at 6 p.m. To open the meeting, we elected our new vice mayor, who is Victoria Askin. We had 2 reports, one from the police department. Our police department is one of few police departments in the state of Alaska that are accredited. And so they just were reaccredited, and there was some recognition for that. Kevin gave a presentation on the Community Development Block Grant, or the CDBG, that you are probably more familiar with than I am. And there were some questions about that, about the proposed use that I think you have already discussed, and whether or not any other proposals could be submitted on what that could be used for. Public hearings, I'll read the ordinance number. 3490, 2025, we accepted some EPA grant funds for construction of wastewater treatment facility, digester blower upgrades. 3491, 2025, accepted the 3 bronze statues for the airport, and they had an unveiling last week. And then Resolution 2025-62 vacated unused utility easements in Valhalla Heights subdivision, which were lots 8, 9, 27, 28, and Block 7. Resolution 2025-63, we just approved the council meeting schedule, so nothing exciting there. The schedule? Oh, for yours?
Because of the length of time in July between the last one in June and the first one in August, council elected to move their meeting back to the 8th, so it'll be the second Wednesday, which would bump us to the 3rd and 5th. So it'll keep us 2 weeks apart from all of our meetings. It would just be at the 3rd and 5th, not the 2nd and 4th in July. Tentatively scheduled. They could be, depending on if business, we may cancel one or both of them.
Thank you. Resolution 2025-64, we terminated the lease for the Alaska Center for Space Technology, or the Challenger Learning Center. So if you were unaware, that is finally shutting down. Not finally, that makes it sound bad. Everyone's disappointed that it's shutting down. And then resolutions 2025, 65, and 66, we authorized some equipment purchases for IT and a new ride-along snow blower. Some new business that was just talked about. Guardrail replacement for Beaver Loop Road, data center cooling system replacement, rezoning 7 lots and 1 track from urban residential, 2 tracks for suburban residential, and that's the Redoubt Avenue corridor between 4th and Float Plain. You probably, again, know more about this. I'll leave out the stuff that you guys do. How about that? And then there was a sole source for ambulance lift system purchase. Some of the council direction Kevin already talked about. We confirmed Marty to the commission, and we decided who you got stuck with for your new council liaison. For right now, that's me. So thanks for having me. And boy, what an exciting first one. Okay. Upcoming items, in case you're interested, there's a city elections work session. That's where we will interview people who are applying to fill the vacant city council seat. That's on December 3rd at 5 p.m. And then tentatively, January 12th, we'll have a joint work session with Salamatoff Tribal Council. That's where we talk about joint opportunities that we may have. And that's my report. Thank you.
I have a question. Any prospective occupants for the Challenger?
Not that I'm aware of.
There has been some interest from certain different parties, but they've been reaching out to Public Works, who will be managing the facility in the interim, city manager's office, and I know of one that wants to tour the facility, so I don't think they'll be idle for long.
Item J, is there anyone from the public wishing to comment? Remote attendees?
There are no remote attendees.
The next meeting is December 10th. Is there anyone planning to be absent or attending remotely?
I may not be there. Santa Claus's sleigh is full.
I wasn't planning on reapplying for my seat, but now that we moved the weeks, that works out way better for me. So, 'cause my husband's schedule, I was always missing meetings because we travel when my husband's home. So this would be way better. So can I still turn in my paperwork?
Item L, Commissioner comments. Commissioner Keaton, may we have?
Thanks, everybody, for coming, and I learned a lot.
Commissioner Askin?
Round one. First meeting done. Yes, yes. Since my wife has been elected as the vice mayor, I to be referred to as the first vice dude.
I'll make a note of that for the meeting.
Commissioner Woodard?
I'm good, thanks.
Commissioner Kraus?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Welcome aboard, Vice Dude, to the commission.
Item M, we have none.
Commissioner Petty. Commissioner Petty's online.
No
Commissioner Petty, I'm sorry. Do you have any comment?
No comments. Thank you.
All right, again, item M, no pending items. I move to adjourn the meeting at 8:21 PM.